Hey, good morning. Today we're going to talk to you about our base defensive alignments and assignments in our stack front, which is our 4 down front from a defensive line standpoint. First two things that you need to know as a defensive lineman coming to Colby College and playing the position is what's expected of you. The two things that are expected of you is to give the best that you have to give every day and do what's right in your life. And the point of this talk, we focus on 2 of our 5 essentials that we look at in defensive line play. The alignment and the assignment within our stack front, technique, effort, and finish, which will be covered at a later point. But those are the 5 areas that we focus on when we're watching tape and when we're grading. So the defensive line in our defense, we're a single gap defense, which everybody's responsible, our front 7 are responsible for gap. We play gap replace defense based on what happens up front and how each individual position can be affected through certain offensive blocking schemes. First thing that we have to understand is what the gaps are. So we letter gaps from inside out, A through D. The gap between the center and the guard on either side is the A gap. The gap between the guard and the tackle is the B gap on either side. The guard between the tight end and the tackle is the C gap. Even if there's no tight end there, it's still the C gap. And then outside the tight ends are the D gap. When we shade our alignment from a defensive line standpoint, we number everything from inside out, going from even to odd numbers. So all outside shades are odd numbers, all head-up shades are even numbers. Anything with an inside shade is tagged with an I. And for alignment purposes, our base alignment in these techniques, if we're on an inside shade, our inside foot is up and our outside hand is down. If we're on an outside shade, our outside foot is up and our inside hand is down. And normally, with the exception of our defensive ends, our defensive tackles are aligning. It's an outside shade on the outside foot of their visual key. And same thing with our, regardless of where we are in technique on the inside. We'll cover that here in a second. But numbering everything from inside out, starting head up on the center, that's a 0 technique. Outside shade of the center is 1 technique. When we move inside shade of the guard, that's a 2 tagged with an I. So an inside shade of guard, 2I. Head up on the guard is a 2. Outside shade of the guard is a 3. Inside shade of tackle, we have a 4 tagged with an I. Head up on the tackle is a 4. Outside shade of tackle is a 5. We move to the tight end. Inside shade of tight end is a 6 tagged with an I. Head up on the tight end is a 6. The defensive line will sometimes hear me say you can play that in a heavy 6. We like to heavy up the 6 almost in a sort of a 2-gap technique, but not a 2-gap. We're still responsible for our gap, just based on how we feel we play tight ends best. And then outside shade of the tight end is the 9 technique. So we have our alignments here, which are our shades, and then our assignments with our gaps. 2 focuses of this discussion. And as a defensive lineman, the 2 things that I key guys up on and coach them up on is the man you're aligned on is your visual key. That's the guy you are reading, which will tell you what scheme or what play is being run. You're keying the near knee of your visual key, the guy you're aligned up on. And our job is to create great vertical push through a contact balanced position, which is leverage. Our hands above our eyes, our feet shoulder width apart, a nice power base underneath us. We never cross our feet over as we're moving laterally down the line. Try our best to work that in everyday drills. And then the next adjacent lineman that you're lined up on is your pressure key. So you have a visual key and then you have a pressure key. So if your visual key ends up disappearing, where and what does the pressure key do for a later discussion? So our base fronts, we have several base fronts out of our stack defense, base stack. First here, we make a tight frontage call. So everything is called to the tight end, or based on what we see on tape throughout the week in game planning, some no tight end sets we may call the front to the back. So as defensive lineman, you're going to get a call from the linebacker to determine the strength call. And again, we always have to call to the tight end. We're a tight frontage call T. Our base stack front, picture 1, top left here. We have a tight end set. Stack, hand signal, hand over hand. To the call side, or to the strong side of the formation, defensive ends in a 9 technique outside the tight end. No more than 2 feet outside in a slight cocked angled position, which we'll show you on film in a second. We have 3 techniques strong. So the call side, we have a 3 and a 9. Weak side, away from the call, we have a 1 and a 5 technique. If we want to create a variation to the weak side or away from the call, we can tag stack with an I. So stack I, that tells the weak side tackle away from the call that now he's an inside shade on the offensive guard. When we align with 2 tight end formations, and we just have base stack called, we're still going to have our 9 technique and our 3 technique to the call side. Away from the call, defensive linemen are going to get a check from the linebackers behind him. So the weak side tackle is going to hear an eye check, which will put him in a 2-eye. The adjuster or box who's ever on the weak side based on formation, where we're on the field, the weak side defensive end is going to get a heavy check. So anytime as a defensive end, you hear a heavy check behind you, that's going to bump you to a 6-eye, and then you're going to be responsible for the C gap. The linebacker outside is going to be responsible for the D gap. So everybody's responsible for a gap. That's our adjustment versus 2 tight end sets and stack. We have stack B, which aligns the defensive end to the call side in a 6-eye inside shaded tight end. Same technique, 3 technique, 1 technique, 5 technique away from the call side. Consistency. Signal for stack B, stack B. Stack T is a variation to the front, to the call side of the front that affects our strong side defensive tackle and the tackle to the call side. Now puts him in a 4-eye. So stack T, 4-eye technique inside shade of the tackle. Your gap responsibility does not change. It just changes your alignment. And then stack W, regardless of a right or a left call, it affects the defensive tackles on both sides, strong and weak. Stack W puts you in both in 3 techniques. And the reason that we do this primarily is on 3rd and long situations to hopefully take the center out of protection and give the defensive tackle to the man side protection a 2-way go. So it's up to the later discussion on pass rush how we determine that, but trying to give you a 2-way go and get you out in space a little bit, much like our defensive ends. So we'll take a look at the tape and briefly again just show you alignments and assignments and how we teach it in a progression moving into preseason versus several different sets that we showed you. Okay, so the first formation here is your base pro formation out of 21 personnel, 2 backs, 1 tight end. We have a tight end set to the defensive left. It's in the right in this picture, but we would have a left-left call from the Mike linebacker. So, to the call side, we have a 9 technique, who's aligned outside shade of the tight end, no more than 2 feet outside, the slight angle or cock to his alignment. His visual key is the tight end. His assignment is the D gap. His alignment is a 9 technique. To the call side, we have our 3 technique. Outside shade of the guard, hand aligned on the outside foot. Visual keys to guard, pressure keys to tackle. 3 technique alignment, his assignment is the B gap. Away from the call, we have a 1 technique weak, aligned in the A gap, that's his assignment. And away from the call with no tight end, our defensive end just bumps to a loose, we call loose 5 technique. No more again than 2 feet outside shade of the end man here on the line of scrimmage. Visual keys to tackle. Now C gap is our assignment. Okay, picture 2. We have a 3x1 pro trips formation, 11 personnel. The strength call in this picture is to the right as we're looking at it. The linebacker who moves out of the box in the apex position between the tight end and the number 2 receiver now is in D gap. So he has to give a heavy call to the defensive end, which puts him in C gap. That aligns you in a 6-eye technique to the call side. Same alignment to the call side for our defensive tackle. 3 technique, outside shade of the guard, D gap responsibility. Weak side, we still have a 1 and we still have a loose 5. The 1 technique responsible for A gap, the loose 5 technique responsible here for C gap. Next picture is a no tight end formation. We determined based on film here that we were going to set the front to the back. Okay, so to the fullback here, this offset H back, which we see a lot of. So in this picture, there's no tight ends. We have a strength call to the right, which puts a 5 technique, loose 5 technique here to the field, to the strong side, call side. He is still the C gap player. Our 3 technique, aligned on the guard, is the B gap player. Away from the call, 1 technique, outside shade of the center, A gap responsibility. Away from the call, on the weak side, we have a loose 5 technique, C gap responsibility, outside shade of the tackle. Couple more pictures here. Now we have a double tight end set. We have a double tight end set and balls on the hash. We're going to set the front in this picture to the field. So this is a right call. We're looking at it from behind the defense. So as you see to the call side, still have a 9 technique. And then that's in our alignment. Our assignment is the D gap here, from the defensive end to the call side. Moving to the defensive tackle. 3 technique, D gap responsibility. Weak side now, this is where we get our eye check. We have an eye check, which puts the weak side defensive tackle in 2-eye, still A gap responsibility. His visual key is now the guard. Pressure key becomes the center. And then away from the call, the weak side defensive end gets a heavy call from the box linebacker in this picture, which puts him in a 6-eye inside shade tight end with C gap responsibility. And there's another tight end, no tight end set, which I showed you, very similar to the picture before. We set the front to the back. Lastly, another formation we're seeing a lot of are these off formations. So we have a 3-by-1 formation set here primarily to the field. If you look at this picture, from behind the defense, we have a left call. So we've identified number 80 in the picture as the tight end. He's off the line of scrimmage. He's splitting the crotch of the offensive tackle here. So instead of putting us out in space, whether this is Ace Pro or Pro Trips, it's irrelevant, but we're setting the front to the tight end, and we're tightening up our 5 technique, and we're the C gap player here to the call side. Reading the offensive tackle is our visual key. Sometimes the reason we're doing this, we're getting out in space and we get an outside zone play and our 3 technique gets reached. That allows for the running back really to bang it up in that C gap area, which becomes very difficult. So we have a 5 technique to the call side, still C gap responsibility. 3 technique, left call, B gap responsibility. Away from the call, we have our 1 technique weak, A gap responsibility, alignment, assignment. The alignment of the weak side defensive end is a 5 technique, no more than 2 feet outside, C gap responsibility. So that's our base stack alignment as it pertains to our defensive line. Very simple, very easy to comprehend and understand. The communication part is vital as some formations change. But if we know where our alignment is, where our assignment is, and we're trying to eliminate mental mistakes, those MAs that force us to create bad situations and cost us potentially points on the board or field position or what have you. But we have to be great in our alignment and assignment. It's day 1 stuff. We'll coach up the technique, coach up the effort and finish, but that's our base alignment and assignment from our stacked defensive front.